I don't understand why they haven't started her yet, because there are only 2 players on this Team USA who hasn't started: Caitlin Clark and Rae Burrell. Now, Rae Burrell was added to this team because Sonia Citron and Aaliyah Boston ended up being injured and they weren't able to make it. So she was a late minute addition to this team as well. And you have somebody like Caitlin Clark, who I think is the best player on this team. She has proven herself, and she's obviously the biggest superstar on this team and the biggest superstar that is currently in this.
Italy was defeated by Team USA 93-59. Dominant and comfortable, just as you would expect. However, people are not discussing the score. People are talking about the same things they were talking about after the previous game and the one before that. Caitlin Clark was on the bench at tip-off again, and the coaching staff's explanation was nowhere to be seen.
We're going to get into that, but the GOAT, Caitlin Clark, gave us a performance off of the bench. Okay, it is clear that Team USA functions better with Caitlin Clark at the helm. She gave us some bombs from Caitlin Clarkville. Okay.
Leave a comment below. Do you think Caitlin Clark should start for Team USA? Or is the coaching staff correct to experiment with a lineup at this point? Tell us exactly what you think.
That are in the crowd for these games, a lot of them have Iowa jerseys. They have Caitlin Clark jerseys. They're repping Indiana Fever. And so that's the problem that I have. It's not something to overreact to, but again, there's just this common thread that I just don't truly understand. Like, I don't understand it. Think about it this way. Think if Victor Wembanyama, because he's also in his 3rd year in the NBA, he's playing for Team France, and he's clearly, or say he's playing for Team USA, even in that regard. Say he's playing for Team USA. Wemby would be starting. Victor Wembanyama would be starting. He wouldn't be coming off of the bench because he's that great of a player. But Caitlin, it's almost like, sorry, I'm rambling here, but it's almost like you can't even make that comparison because Victor Wembanyama didn't change the game of basketball the way that Caitlin Clark changed the women's game of basketball. So
let's just get right to the topic, since skirting the issue would be awkward right now. Caitlin Clark has yet to start a game in the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup qualification tournament. Not one. Team USA has played Puerto Rico, then Italy, with the person usually regarded as the biggest star in women's basketball right now. The athlete whose jersey fills whatever audience attends these games. The player whose presence alters the entire dynamic of an offense began the game on the bench, watching someone else go out for tip-off.
Starting nod for one of the games. Angel Reese got a starting nod for one of the games. Kiki Ariafen got a starting nod for one of the games. And these are all younger players who are making their senior debuts along with Caitlin Clark. And then you have Caitlin Clark, who's clearly the biggest superstar in women's basketball, just not starting. I just don't.
The coaching staff has provided no cogent reason for why. Now, let us be clear about what is and is not being debated here. The outcome of these games isn't the problem. No matter who begins, Team USA will defeat the majority of the opponents in this qualifying tournament. The 93-59 victory over Italy makes this plain. The team has too much skill in too many areas for any qualifying level opponent to truly threaten them.
All right, in the win today versus Italy, Caitlin Clark, 12 points, 5 assists. She hit 2 Caitlin Clark bombs from the 3-point line, and this is off the bench, okay? It was very clear and very apparent after game 1, before game 1, but definitely after game 1 of this Team USA thing, she should be the starting point guard. Like, what are we still doing with this Chelsea Gray thing? Chelsea Gray, I think she might be the only player who has started every single game. I'm guessing this is just some seniority thing y'all trying to do.
When you have a squad like Cheryl Lawson's, winning is almost guaranteed at this point in the competition. So this discussion isn't about victories and losses. It is about something more fundamental than that. It's about respect, rationality, and the increasingly tough challenge of explaining why Caitlin Clark and Rae Burrell haven't had a single start this tournament. Burrell was a late addition to the team, called up when Sonia Citron and Aaliyah Boston were injured and unable to travel. Read that again. The only 2 players who have not started are a last-minute roster addition and Caitlin Clark. Meanwhile, Angel Reese, Paige Buer, and Kiki Rice all got starts. Players making their senior national team debuts are handed starting opportunities that the squad's most decorated and important player has never received, and everyone is expected to accept it without question. The analogy that keeps coming up in this discourse is worth considering seriously. Think about Victor Wembanyama. He is also in his third year with the league. He is undeniably the face of French basketball and would be an unquestionable starter for any national team he plays for. There would be no discussion, experiment, or rotation to figure out. He would be in the starting lineup because he is the best player available, which is how these decisions should be made. But here's the portion of the comparison that actually makes Caitlin Clark's predicament worse rather than better. Wembanyama shifted the conversation about what a big man can do in the NBA. That is significant. But Caitlin Clark altered the entire business and cultural landscape of women's basketball. Attendance records, television ratings, jersey sales, and throngs gathered to see her practice for a sport that had traditionally struggled to fill arenas for live games. She has had a greater impact on the visibility and relevancy of the women's game than any other current player, male or female, in the same time period. She's seated on the bench at the start of the game. If that does not strike you as at least questionable, the standard for what constitutes an acceptable coaching choice appears to have been set at the floor level. Now, let's examine at what transpired in the Italy game, because the box score paints a story that makes the benching decision even more questionable. Clark finished with 12 points and 5 assists. She also had 5 turnovers, which is a valid critique and worth mentioning. However, her plus-minus for the night was plus 27. That implies that while Caitlin Clark was on the court, Team USA outscored Italy by 27 points. When she wasn't on the floor, the gap closed dramatically. That number plus 27 is the most crucial figure in the entire box score, yet it receives the least attention in the broader conversation because it answers the question that the no-starting debate continues to revolve around. Is Caitlin Clark improving this team? The plus-minus expresses yes forcefully. Every time she walks onto the floor, the offense breathes differently. The speed goes up. Defenders must account for her the time she crosses half court, allowing room for everyone around her. This isn't new knowledge. This has been true since she played at Iowa. When Clark runs point guard and gets the ball in her hands, the game picks up almost instantly. When she plays off the ball, the offense slows and becomes congested. The difference is obvious to anyone paying attention, and it has been documented across enough games at enough levels that it should no longer require more experimentation to validate. However, the coaching team continues to experiment with it. Against Italy, Jackie Young, Chelsea Gray, and Caitlin Clark all played at the same time. There were 3 point guards on the court at once, and Clark was not in charge of the offense. Clark was operating off the ball, while either Jackie Young or Chelsea Gray had possession. That is a choice, but it makes no sense in basketball. You do not put one of the best facilitators in the sport on the floor and then deny her the opportunity to facilitate. You do not bench your best playmaker when she is on the field. The whole objective of having Caitlin Clark on the floor is to help the offense function more smoothly. Taking the ball out of her hands while she is on the court does not jeopardize the strategy. It defeats it completely. The 3-point situation also needs to be addressed because it is directly related to what Clark excels at and what the club is now lacking in. In a 93-point victory over Italy, Team USA only made 23 shots. A zone defense is particularly vulnerable to 3-point shooting. The standard answer to a zone is ball movement and 3-point shots. When you hit enough threes against a zone, the defense is forced to adjust or collapse. This is basic basketball strategy. Italy operated a zone. Team USA reacted by repeatedly shooting mid-range jumpers and long twos. There isn't enough ball movement to generate clear 3-point looks. There isn't enough attention on targeting the holes that a zone defense literally hands over to any offensive ready to exploit them. And who on this team is one of the most dangerous 3-point shooters in the game? Who has the range, fast release, and gravity to draw defenders out to the perimeter, making room for everyone else? Caitlin Clark, the player who is not beginning, the person who has occasionally played off the ball, and the one whose shooting ability should have been the key weapon against a zone defense, was not deployed as such. There was a moment late in the game that demonstrated exactly what happens when the offense executes properly. Clark came off a high pick and roll. Throughout the game, she had repeatedly struck the roll man, or post player. So when she repeated the maneuver, Italy's defense collapsed on the roll. When that happened, Clark had a wide-open 3-pointer that he converted, That is the play operating just as it should. That is what occurs when a defense is forced to respect her passing talent, and she punishes them for overcommitting. That one play was an example of everything this offense should do more of. And it happened once. Because play calling and lineup decisions are not designed to make the most of Clark's abilities. They are organized around something else. What exactly the coaching staff hasn't said. The distribution of minutes, at the very least, presents a favorable picture. Paige Buers played the most minutes on the team. Clark finished a close second. So the coaching staff definitely appreciates what she provides. They're playing her a lot, making the no-start choice even more puzzling. You trust her enough to give her nearly as many minutes as anybody else on the team, but not enough to put her in the starting lineup. That's a paradox. You either believe she offers value to the team or you don't. Playing her heavy minutes, but refusing to start her is not a well-thought-out strategic approach. It is a compromise that does not satisfy anyone and makes no logical sense. It conveys nothing useful to the player. It does not result in a better basketball outcome. That it also generates the type of external frustration and media coverage that complicates a qualifying event beyond what is necessary. The crowds are also worth mentioning here, since they provide a different type of evidence on how this situation appears from the outside. Tickets for these games are priced at $200. The arenas aren't selling out. The audiences that do arrive are heavily adorned with Iowa jerseys, Indiana Fever gear, and Caitlin Clark items. People are paying $200 to see her play. They are not paying $200 to watch her come off the bench as someone else takes her place. That truth has commercial consequences that extend beyond any particular coaching philosophy. Women's basketball has been working for years to develop the type of continuous mainstream audience that will support the sport's long-term growth. The Caitlin Clark effect on that effort has been thoroughly documented, and the figures are not subtle. She is the driving force behind much of this growth. Treating her as a bench player in a tournament that should highlight everything the sport has to offer is not a fair decision. It is actively working against the goal. This is not to imply that chemistry is irrelevant or that lineup experimentation is pointless. These athletes have not spent much time together. They are still learning each other's tendencies, and it is the coaching staff's obligation to determine which combinations work before the competition becomes more severe. That is a serious consideration. Early tournament games against beatable opponents are a good opportunity to try new things. However, Caitlin Clark not earning a single start in any of those experiments does not constitute experimenting. That is a pattern, and patterns convey meaning. Paige Bucher has gotten a start. She earned it. She is a great player who had a solid game against Italy, scoring 12 points with good efficiency. Nobody is arguing that she shouldn't be playing, but she got a start whereas Clark did not. Angel Ree made a start. The same Angel Ree that spent the second game refusing to pass to Clark in transition and attempting to play point forward on a team with one. She got started. Caitlin Clark didn't. If there is a reasonable basketball justification for that priority order, the coaching staff has yet to provide it. And at this point, the lack of an explanation is its own form of response. Team USA is winning, but winning badly, while the most influential player in women's basketball watches from the bench at tip-off is not a strategy. It is a situation that will only worsen. If you think it's time for Coach Lawson to place Clark in the starting lineup, click the like button, subscribe for more, and share your opinions below. We read everything.